On 26th of April 1986, a great explosion took place in the middle of the night. No bomb, no missile, no fire. Just a simple reactor explosion turned so deadly that within hours, people started vomiting blood. The skin started peeling. Doctors didn't even know what they were treating. This is the story of Chernobyl.
In a nuclear accident near the Soviet Union, and workers coming on the job registered abnormally high levels of radiation. As tests were conducted, similar puzzling reports of high radiation came in from all over Scandinavia. The scene of a terrible meltdown. Explosions powerful enough.
So, hey everyone, this is Pratik of second year MBBS student at GMC. Today, we are going to talk about the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, the worst nuclear disaster in the entire humankind. Part 1. What actually happened? So, just after the World War II, the Soviet Union had greatly invested in upgrading their powers. The most obvious of them, yes, you heard correct, the nuclear power. So, they established the Vladimir Lenin nuclear power plant, also known as the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, in Pripyat, under the Soviet Union. Now, it was of the RBMK 1000 type of reactor. It had 4 reactors under it, and all of them were contributing to the major source of electricity for them. Now, what happened that the first three reactors had undergone their routine safety tests and had clearly surpassed them. The 4th reactor was yet to be surpassed through the safety checks. Now, it was scheduled on the 25th of April 1986 at around 11 p.m. So, on that night, due to systemic failures, human errors, and flaws in the design of RBMK reactor, a great explosion took place, which shot the reactor core open. This core was made up of graphite. Now, graphite, due to the high temperature, got fire, and the combustion was so that immediately after a second reaction, a second combustion, a second blast took place. And this time, it shot into the atmosphere all the radioactive elements from the core. And this was not just a normal fire, it was an invisible contamination by all the radioactivity elements and the radiation they were carrying. Part 2. The invisible enemy. See, the reaction which got leaked due to the explosion was of ionizing type. Now, what it means is that it has the capability to mutate our DNA, to cause double-stranded breaks in our DNA, to cause apoptosis, to cause ionization in our DNA. Now, all of these combined affects our tissues, and the most affected tissues are the bone marrow, the GI tract, the skin, and the thyroid gland. So, all of them showed symptoms related to these organs. And it is basically attributed to the fact that the most dividing cells are the most vulnerable ones. So these organs were the target. Part 3. The first responders. Obviously, the Chernobyl firefighters were the first responders. Now, they came unprepared for such a disaster. They inhaled iodine-131, cesium-137, touched the radioactive debris, and had no protective equipments. Now, the result? Nausea, vomiting of blood, metallic taste, severe weakness. Following that, within days, bone marrow collapse, internal bleeding, skin necrosis, and whatnot. A condition called as the acute radiation syndrome, ARS. It stages as prodromal phase of vomiting, then a latent phase of false recovery, then as manifesting illness, and ultimately death. 28 of the first responders died within weeks. Others died within a few years, and those who were still alive had eventually developed serious chronic illnesses such as cancer. Part 4. Why thyroid cancer skyrocketed? See, the second explosion which took place in the reactor caused the radioactive particles to get into the atmosphere as radioactive dust. This dust settled on the grass fields and pastures fed by the cows. The cows ingested this radioactive iodine-131 and passed it into their milk. When this milk was consumed by the children, they were contaminated by iodine-131, which was aggressively absorbed by the thyroid gland. As the thyroid gland was taking up the iodine-131 isotope, the radioactive form, result pediatric thyroid carcinoma, particularly papillary carcinoma. This is classic radiation-induced malignancy. Part 5. Medical cover-up and deal. Soviet authorities delayed evacuation, and the news was yet to come. They tried to suppress it, but due to the radioactivity detection by Swedish stations, they were compelled to make the news public and so evacuate the people. But it was too late. People of Pripyat were exposed for 36 hours before evacuation. So until then, they were still exposed to the harmful radiation. Doctors misdiagnosed the radiation sickness as food poisoning or any other chemical exposure. But why? Because radiation is invisible, odorless, and painless at first. Medicine was unprepared for this kind of a medical catastrophe. Part 6. The plot twist. Even after 10 days following the explosion, the heat was still uncontrollable due to unknown reasons. The heat was so immense that it was causing cracks to the base of the reactor. Now, why this is important? Because it was responsible for the instant expansion of the water into gas, that is steam, and it would cause immense pressure to be exerted on the reservoir valves that it would be responsible for a third possible blast. Now, this was expected to be so severe that the entire Europe nation would be inhabitable for the next 5 lakh years, and 5 million people would have been affected by this. So, the only solution for ruling this was that the radioactive water in the reservoir would have to be drained away from the site of the reactor. Now, the main catch here is that it had to be done manually by human intervention. So, 3 heroes came up for this. So, on 4th May 1986, they dove into the radioactive water tank and drained its valves. And to our surprise, Boris only died in the year 2005 due to a heart attack, while Alexei and Valerie are still alive. Part 7. The long-term effects. Radiation exposure increased leukemia, thyroid cancers, solid organ malignancies, infertility, cataract, and psychological trauma. Here's something most people ignore. Mental health impact, that is stigma, PTSD, anxiety disorder, and all these have affected thousands more than the radiation has even impacted. Part 8. The Ghost City. Pripyat, the town where the Chernobyl plant was established. It became a ghost town overnight. Today, it remains largely abandoned. The radiation levels vary, but briefly, they are safe. Over a large area, there are still radiation traces in high amounts. The reactor foam is currently being covered by a huge steel sarcophagus to prevent the radiation spread even further. As future doctors, what does Chernobyl disaster teach us? Emergency preparedness saves lives. Transparency in public health matters. Radiation sickness is real and devastating. Rapid evacuation saves lives and reduces the load of cancer burden. Science ignored becomes disaster. So, if you were a doctor on duty that night, would you have recognized acute radiation syndrome? Comment yes if it's there. For more such medical case files, subscribe to our channel for Science Explained without drama and only facts. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.